Hey guys, remember to like the video and hit subscribe.
My next claim is the GOP will destroy Social Security and health care. Nice to see you.
So what if Social Security should go away? That's my question to you.
Because Social Security keeps 2/3 of our elderly out of poverty. And not only does it keep our elderly out of poverty, it's essentially a social insurance program that protects you if at the end of your life you don't have enough money to survive.
For right now, do you know that it's also the albatross around our generation's neck?
No, it isn't.
Okay, so
let me just explain this.
Well, you're going to go back to lecturing me about Social Security.
Well,
we don't
that's
have,
what we're talking about. Social Security.
Yeah, Social Security is one of the top 3 funded.
Social Security is almost the biggest thing that our government does.
Exactly, and we are more than $30 trillion in debt.
Well, first of all, Social Security cannot contribute legally to the deficit.
Because they don't even account it in the federal deficit every year.
Correct.
Well, because it's not paid for, it shouldn't be paid for by the ordinary budget. It's paid for by your contributions to Social Security.
We have 30 years.
Self-funding. When Social Security started in 1936, you have more workers than retirees because people haven't entered into retirement. By 1970, it was at 3.5 to 1. Now it's at 2.5 to 1. But productivity has increased during that time, so the amount of money paid into Social Security has been up there. The reason why we are running out of money just for the trust fund, not for Social Security, like I say, if we do nothing with Social Security now, it is statutorily unable to contribute to the debt. The math is right there. The reason why the trust fund is running out is because wealth inequality has hoarded so much money above the cap.
You don't think it's because the government does a terrible job managing their money? They have a huge spending problem, and they go, oh, look at all this money we have for Social Security that's earmarked for 60 years from now that we're just going to spend on something right now.
40 years ago, they predicted this. This is an actuarial table. Accountants sit there and look at it. This is a very easy math.
How am I just so good? Wait. I'm good in like 2 different ways. One second. I tweeted a while ago that conservatives would kick Reagan out of the current party. I don't remember when I tweeted this. I did. I said conservatives would not accept Reagan right now. He'd be a rhino. Or they would just call him a liberal. Apparently this person is an influencer. I used to go to conservative conferences where Reagan was applauded as the best president ever. But I've completely changed my view on him after realizing that he's responsible for kicking off the libertarian subversion of conservatism that we see dominate the right today. And then homosexuality is so degenerate that it feels unchristian to even talk about what it actually entails. And it's insane that average people, let alone conservatives, ever accepted this as normal, let alone positive or wholesome. I don't know a single right-wing Zoomer who believes the official 9/11 narrative. Easy. Boom.
Problem.
Accountants in the government are always right? That's totally the thing that you're saying? That they're
all the numbers are lies. Great argument.
60 years from now that we're just going to spend on something right now.
40 years ago, they predicted this. This is an actuarial table. Accountants sit there and look at it. This is a very easy math problem.
Accountants in the government are always right? That's totally the thing that you're saying? That they're always correct about money, right? That's why we have a $40 trillion debt problem.
The problem isn't the math with the $40 trillion debt problem. It's you have tax
It's
cuts
the spending problem. I totally agree with you, which I would argue is part of why Social Security's gone in the hole already.
That's simply not true.
Oh, okay.
So the problem with Social Security is that just we've borrowed from the fund, right? And then we have to pay it back. That's the issue. It's not that the math was wrong, but...
So we're out of money from the Social Security bucket.
No. Statutorily, by that I mean by law, Social Security pays for itself. If we do nothing, the 6.2% that your employer and your employee pays into it will pay out 78% of benefits starting in 2033.
And why is it going down? If everything's so much better, why
is it going down? Because the federal government borrows money from the Social Security fund. Sam, say this, please.
is it only 78%?
If we raise the cap...
No. You don't talk about
There's a cap right now at $176,000. So, for instance, if you make $100,000, you pay $6,000...
Also, by the way, I don't think raising the cap would actually do anything to help shore up Social Security. Because you have a maximum that you can pay into Social Security during your lifetime. If you raise the cap, on your wages of what is a Social Security taxable wage, you'd probably just hit that cap earlier, and then you would just stop paying into Social Security, right? You can only pay so much into Social Security before the federal government says, hey, you've paid enough, no more, and then you don't pay any more into it. But you could raise that cap as well. I don't know if people even know that second cap exists, but I'm pretty sure the reason why the Social Security fund is quote unquote running out of money or is out of money is because the federal government borrows from the Social Security fund and then has to pay it back.
$6,200 into that.
A year,
but
yeah.
A year. But if you make $4 million, do you know how much money you pay into Social Security? $6,200.
And so why should wealthy people pay a higher percentage?
No, they should pay the same percentage. 6.2 on $400,000, 6.2 on $1 million.
And why should they pay even more money at all? Because they make more money? Again, you fundamentally have this idea that because somebody, you have an idea that because somebody makes more money, that's fundamentally wrong, right?
No.
Like, if you go out with a friend to eat and you have a rich friend and if you make $32,000 a year and your friend makes $500,000 a year and he wants to take you to a nice steakhouse, do you guys think you split the bill 50-50 on that? Why not? You're eating the same food, shouldn't you? No, of course not. The guy who makes way more money can splurge a little bit more, and it doesn't even affect him. This is marginal utility. Explain it, Sam.
No, I don't think it's fundamentally wrong. I think that they should pay more taxes.
Have you seen the Legal Mindset guy's video? Absolute wild clip champ. What, of me? No. Legal Mindset and the other weird Kiwi Farms lawyer guy have some of the worst legal analysis of anything regarding my stuff. I don't know if they just have never practiced or studied tort or civil procedure or anything, but everything they say about, or at least 80% of what I've seen them say about anything involving my court stuff is beyond retarded. But listen, have fun with it, okay?
Now, I do think as a society, we should not allow billionaires. So, for instance,
they can pay more taxes generally, but why should
the highest tax rate was and the greatest expansion of our...
No, why do these talking points? I hate these talking points. Just explain why. We don't have to do some historical. Just explain why. Wealthy people can afford to pay more.
They can pay more taxes generally, but why should they?
The highest tax rate was and the greatest expansion of our economy in this country?
Does a billionaire get more money from Social Security if they went to go take it than I would?
No,
of course not. So why should they pay more?
I'll tell you why.
Well, they could get more money if the worker was only earning $40,000 his entire life. I think it's possible that they wouldn't have paid in enough to get the maximum benefit from Social Security. So it's possible that they could actually, but.
Because it is a social insurance program that keeps you.
There's no lifetime cap on Social Security taxes, only a yearly limit. No, I'm pretty sure there is a lifetime cap because I think you can log into the SSA to find out how close you are to how close you are to actually hitting that cap, so you don't have to pay Social Security anymore. Wait. I have to go and look all this shit up again when you find out. Because I think there's a maximum amount that you can get from Social Security, assuming you've paid the maximum amount in. But there's a maximum amount total of Social Security wages that once you've hit that cap, I don't think you can't pay anymore and you don't get any more out from it. I'm 99% sure of this. No, I'm 85% sure of this. Hold on. What's the current cap? Yearly. For everybody talking yearly cap, these people don't know what they're talking about. The yearly cap is just, there's only a certain dollar amount that your income is taxed on FICA-related stuff. Which is $100-something thousand. And then past that, you don't have any more taxable income that you have to pay FICA towards. But what I'm saying is I think like if you're at that cap for like 20, 30 years or whatever, I think you can contribute the maximum amount to your individual Social Security account. And then past that, I don't believe the government collects, I don't think it collects any more Social Security from you. But I have to, I need to go look this up and find this again. I think the cap is based on the age you retire. And no. Like you can retire at certain ages to get more or less Social Security, but I'll look this up later.
From being in poverty when you're a senior. And the reason why I think billionaires should pay more taxes than other people, even a higher percentage, is because it works better for society. The greatest expansion we've had in this country in terms of economics and the least amount of wealth disparity was in the 40s and 50s and 60s in this country. Do you know what the top marginal rate was?
90%.
Do you know what it was?
I don't know the exact number, but
if you made over $470,000 in 1955, every dollar you would make above that was taxed at 90%.
So I have a question.
90 cents on every dollar was taxed above 470. So if we had in today's dollars,
which is wild, by the way. But
and it's also the greatest expansion we had of the economy.
Yeah, you can expand for a time, and then you see places. You see like Nordic countries that were like, oh, let's tax the hell out of our rich people, right? And then they go, whoops, we messed up. We can't actually live off of our terrible. we basically are able to live off our economic boom that they had between like the 40s and the 90s, and then we have to revert all of that because we
Our economic boom that lasted 50 years? What?
made a terrible choice. We were able to have a party for 50 years until we realized we ran through all the money that capitalism got us. So let me ask you real quick.
What?
So the average the average person, right? Right now they fundamentally look at Social Security, young people like me, and they go, I'm going to have that money sitting waiting for me when I retire. Since your opinion is whatever works best for the average person is better, wouldn't you rather shift towards something that I would agree with, which is getting people that are 19, 20 years old into funding their own retirement rather than relying on other people to fund it for them?
You're talking like the 401k.
Sure. Well, not just the 401k, but IRAs, any other type of retirement. Would you agree? Would we agree with that?
Social Security was set up as part of a three-legged stool where back in the day when I was a kid, we had defined benefit pensions, where you'd know how much money you would get out.
Yeah.
That all shifted in the 80s to defined contribution, where you know how much you put in. The 401k started during that Reagan era. It has been a disaster because the fact of the matter, for better or for worse, people just don't save in the way that you're talking about.
Why?
It would be nice if they could.
If the government were changing the mindset and actually pushing that cultural shift towards, we're not just going to hand you money when you're 65. You have to plan for it right now.
We've had a 40-year experiment with that, the government affecting the cultural mindset, and it failed.
We've had a 40-year experiment of everybody. You know what my parents say? Do you know what grandparents say? They go, well, I'm just waiting for my Social Security check to come in, rather than I have $800,000 waiting for me because I thought about it when I was 19 and 20 because I didn't have this grab bag of money waiting for me. You're assuming that young people
I try and tell my kids.
So we agree. We should get rid of Social Security and phase it out. Well, no. So we should phase out. How would you listen to this idea? You phase out Social Security to where people who have 5 years left before they retire get 100% of the benefits, and then people like me who have 40 years until we retire, I'm not going to get it.
I'm
going to get screwed either way.
No,
you
you're
really
not.
think I'm going to get Social Security someday?
I guarantee you, at the very least, you're going to get 78% of your benefits.
Because if people are paying it, that's like the minimum I think that it'll pay out, assuming people are still paying for it.
That's awesome. I'll get $9,000 a year. That's great.
In calling for our government to increase the cap, in fact, get rid of the cap, then your grandkids will get Social Security.
I would much rather, and again, maybe we'll just disagree, but I would much rather result to, hey, 20-year-olds, please save for your own retirement, invest for your own retirement, because the government is bad at dealing with money.
And what happens
Don't rely
if they
on them. What happens if what?
What happens if those 20-year-olds don't listen to you?
The same thing that happens if a 20-year-old just doesn't go and get a job because I tell them to.
No.
They're going to have a problem, but that's not my fault.
No, I got news for you. It's not your fault, but there used to be in New York City 30,000 people sleeping on the Bowery.
No one in this room was alive before Social Security. We've all lived under this, just like the
and
income tax.
It has been the most successful government program in the history of our government.
Things that are successful don't just start to die out and end up in the...
It's not dying out.
It's the grab bag of money, the massive excess that was there in the early years because of the 42-to-1 beneficiary.
There wasn't a massive excess in 1936.
42-to-1 is a massive excess.
There weren't that many people who had entered into the Social Security program.
And the fact that
in 1970, it was 3.5 workers to 1. Now it's 2.5, but productivity has increased it. I've told you why the Social Security Trust Fund is running out. It is because of wealth disparity. Billionaires hiding and hoarding their money above the cutoff line, which is $176,000. That's the cap. If you remove the cap, your grandkids
billionaires aren't keeping $2 billion under their mattress. They're investing it back into...
they're just putting it into some stock market, or they're just looking around.
The stock market, that's a good place for people with their money, though. The leftist econ arguments.
What do you think a 401k or an IRA relies upon? It relies on the stock market and things like that.
Yeah, a 401k relies on the stock market. And I knew people who were retiring in 2008 when the stock market tanked and they got screwed.
Well,
no, they didn't get screwed, Sam, because they shouldn't be making a full withdrawal from their 401k just because the market goes down, especially if you're using it as a especially if you're using it as a retirement account.
But that's a whole other problem. I would argue that's largely driven by the government being, once again, terrible with policy and creating bad economic hazards.
Social Security is there regardless of what happens with the stock market.
Okay, pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
Thanks,
Micah.
Hey, Micah.
Good evening,
Sam.
Sam.
Nice to meet you.
There's an idea that
this guy.
you have that basically government can kind of fix all these problems, right? If you didn't save for retirement, well, then the government can just come in, swoop in, and save you from
Well, not
that.
swoop in. It starts on literally the day you get your Social Security.
Sure. It swoops in once you retire, right?
Why are we saying swoops in? I'm sorry, you paid Social Security. That's you money you've paid in, and this is what you're entitled to receive out. I don't like this being described as swoops in.
You can,
well, you pay
once you
into
can,
it.
Right, exactly. And so you believe this idea basically that government is an effective organization, which it just time and time again, if you look at history, that's proven to not be true.
How? You should ask. I want you to expand on that. Proven to not be true. In what way? In what manner? Like the government doesn't even necessarily compete in the same arenas. What are you talking about?
When you're hitting at retirement, you don't know. This is an insurance program. That's it. It's an insurance program, and it basically says you're insured against eating cat food when you're 65, and it works. It works.
No, it doesn't. You should have, well, one, you should have your own personal...
How doesn't it work?
How doesn't it work?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we've already discussed the details of how it is just completely failing as a program. Like,
well, how is it failing?
Because I'm not going to receive any Social
No,
Security.
I've already told you right
I know.
now.
I'm not going to rehash out that debate.
Well,
the main
look
issue.
At the numbers. You've just been told this, and you know why you've been told it? Is because they want to raid it to give tax cuts to rich people. That's why.
So are you saying there are the Trump tax cuts were only for rich people? You're saying
Nope. This guy is the king of fallacious argumentation. He did the same shit to me. No one has said that. It's just they disproportionately help rich people. What? Oh, I have to build a track first. Can you still store things in cargo wagons? Is it still space efficient, or was it not space efficient? I don't remember. Wait, it might have never been space efficient. Never mind.
saying
No,
people,
I'm not saying they're only for rich people.
Oh, okay. Then how could
rich
they
people
only
benefited more from it than low-income people? And I would
And what do you mean benefited more from that? Because we
He's
all
just trying to catch him on some technicality. What do you mean benefited more from it? Because the number of he's looking for the ultra technicality, but
already went over the percentage
they
numbers,
don't
and we
need
know
the
that's
money.
not true.
They don't need the money as much, and they don't need it.
What are you talking about? These rich people are the people that are investing in smaller businesses. These are the people that are giving other people jobs.
nobody gives you. One day, some competent left-wing business person will come up here who has ran a business, who knows how businesses work, and will counter this dog shit conservative talking point. You do not give away jobs. You do not give away employment. You hire people as a cost of doing business when you have too much demand for whatever product you're selling, right? Or when you think you can make money by hiring them, okay? Labor is always a cost of doing business. It is a cost of doing business. You don't just give away jobs. Nobody does that. That's not how businesses work.
To allow them to provide for their family.
Okay,
Listen,
pause.
Nobody does that.
Hey, go for it.
What's up? Hey. Good to be back.
Nice to see you.
Okay, yeah, nice to see you too. I want to zoom out a little bit.
Okay.
So obviously you're pinpointing on Social Security, and there's a reason for that.
And healthcare too.
Oh, okay, but Social Security is the program that you're very concerned about, and that or like
Medicare.
that-
I'd love a Medicare for all program, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the reason you're focusing in on Social Security precisely is because Social Security is the most successful in a shadow of social welfare programs and government spending. That it's like the Democrats.
It's also the biggest bucket
Sure,
of money.
it is the biggest
government's
bucket, but the
thing.
Democrats have these social programs and this deficit spending, and it just never ends. It's never enough money. So you're focusing on Social Security because it is the one successful child, but you're ignoring all the social welfare state that we've become.
Social
70%,
Security and
well,
Medicare and Medicaid make up
the majority.
over like a
Right, so
third
70% of our federal spending is mandatory. And that, you're right, it's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, interest on debt. 8% of we're paying for that. So the Democrats run on this, essentially they want a welfare state. So yes, Social Security might help a lot of people, but it's like we're closer to a welfare state than we've ever been. 38%.
The American economy is one of the most productive economies in the world. What are you talking about? Our economy is insanely productive. We lead the world in some of the most important cutting-edge industries today, like AI and all this software-related bullshit. Like what for manufacturing? Elon Musk brought his stupid rocket company and his car company here. Like, what do you mean? We're a welfare state? The United States of America is a welfare state? What are the talking about?
% of the GDP in the U.S. is a welfare state than we've ever been. 38% of the GDP in the U.S. is government spending. That's the highest since World War II. So us conservatives, we're trying to tell you, like, you guys are fiscally really
So are you worried
irresponsible.
about the tax cuts and what that does to the debt and deficit?
The tax cuts increased revenue.
No.
Yes.
No, oh my God.
I want to tell you about Kansas.
Okay, tell me about Kansas.
Sam Brown back in 20...
Fuck Kansas and anything else, and the Laffer curve that this guy brings up. Just look at the congressional, is it the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office? Is that what it is? Like, look at all the projections. Look at the effect of the Trump tax cuts. These were not revenue drivers for the government. They weren't. They just weren't. They're way too aggressive. And the economy is going to contract under Trump, so it's not even doing what it's supposed to do. It's just not, that's not true. Ugh.
2012 brought in Arthur Laffer. You know the Laffer curve,
Yeah.
right? That's
Laffer curve, yeah.
the argument that if you cut taxes, you're going to get more revenue.
Which is true if our tax rate was absurdly high, but it's not.
It
that's exactly what happened.
destroyed
No,
Kansas.
that's exactly what happened
It
to TCJ.
destroyed Kansas. By 2016,
Let's
a
look at the
Republican
numbers.
legislature raised taxes again. They destroyed their education
Reality
system.
is against you, my friend.
Look up
The
Kansas.
the
In
numbers-
fact,
the numbers
during
say
the Trump administration, they sent Sam Brown back. They made him the ambassador to faith because they didn't want this guy
If
around
you want
because it
to
was
tax
a
the rich,
disaster.
you should vote Republican because they pay more in taxes. Under Republican, it was the same
Revenue
as
went
Reagan.
down.
It
Look
was
at
the same as
Kansas.
Trump.
Look at
the
Kansas.
U.S. Look at the
Look
U.S.
at
We have
Kansas.
the numbers
It
for
was
this.
the perfect
Obama's
experiment.
best year,
It destroyed
federal income
Kansas.
revenue, is pales in comparison to Trump's worst year. Do you get what I'm saying? Does more taxes necessarily equate to more revenue?
Yes.
No, that's where you're wrong. So if you look at TCJA, and I'll say the numbers again, the top 1% paid more into the system. GDP grew, wages grew 3% year over year under TCJA. So when you're saying tax the rich, like, it sounds like you're actually a Republican. You just don't know it yet.
You're not.
What?
You're confusing causation with
No, I'm not.
correlation
No, I'm
because
not.
because Obama's economic recovery was way too slow, and I agree with you on that.
Way too slow.
Way too slow.
When you have tons of stimulus, what you're doing is you're creating the Great Depression for the bottom 90%. All the assets inflate. So who does that benefit? Your policies benefit the 1%.
No,
Inflation
no.
disproportionately benefits the 1%. It's an immoral tax on the poor.
No,
and
no, listen.
and that's exactly what happens when they
COVID
stimulate.
inflation was not a function of monetary stimulus.
It absolutely
No.
was. They
No.
increased the money supply
No.
by $6 trillion,
No, I
man.
understand they did that. I understand they did that, and they could pull it back on taxes with the wealthy if they wanted to.
You can't
You're making an
tax-
argument
you don't-
for higher taxation.
Okay, do you think taxing people makes the country wealthier? Is that what you think?
Does it make the country
Do
wealthier?
taxes make us wealthy? Is that government increasing taxes? Are we now more wealthy? Do you think that the only way you create wealth is by producing?
If you tax and spend, government stimulus can, yes, increase GDP, of course.
Is GDP wealth?
Is GDP wealth?
If we import 10 million immigrants and our GDP goes up, are we now wealthier? If the
Not
housing
necessarily.
How do you define wealth? What do you mean?
costs more,
If houses cost more, isn't real estate being more like isn't real estate costing more? Isn't that like part of an increase in wealth? It depends on who you're talking to. If you own a house, then yeah, houses costing more do increase your wealth. What do you mean? If you own a business and you're looking to employ people, having immigrants come in that you can employ does increase your wealth. Yeah, what do you mean?
if CPI goes up because there's more
No,
people.
I understand. And inflation is
basic
under
economics.
control, and we haven't pulled that
not
money
the
off
basic
the table.
economics.
I'm just saying that what
Inflation is back
Look,
is
the
back
welfare
down because
state-
we had a problem.
the welfare
with
state makes us all
logistics.
poorer.
No,
Yes,
doesn't.
it does. And you can see
It doesn't. We
across
have cut.
history.
If you compare,
People want to
if you
come here for
compare-
economic opportunity. We don't want handouts. We want opportunity. That's why as an immigrant, that's why my family came here. We left the socialist paradise. It's garbage. The people that come here want economic opportunity. And you're stifling that. You're undermining capitalism and the free markets with your utopian vision.
There is no
And
free markets, dude.
Well, there's not anymore.
No, there's
But
never
now
been a
there
free
used to be.
market. No.
That is
there's no
what
such
makes
thing.
America the greatest. That's what makes the greatest. America is the greatest economy in the world because of the free market.
The greatest
free market capitalism is the most
economy
ethical and
America
moral.
had was when we had 90% tax.
That's not true. The numbers are against you.
1940, 1950, 1960, the highest top marginal tax rate was 90%, and we
when
had
Milton Friedman predicted stagflation in the 70s with your social welfare.
We had OPEC. We had
your welfare
oil shock that drove inflation way up, and that was a function of OPEC. But in the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s, highest top marginal tax rate was 90%. We had wealth inequality.
Nobody was paying that high tax rate, but nobody's going to call Sam out on this, so fucking who cares? Also, who cares?
Post-World War II
something called the
industrial
Great Compression, and more people enjoyed.
Post-World War II industrial revolution. We were producing more than every other country.
Good conversation. Keep cutting each other off. Yes.
That's what creates wealth.
And we were doing that with a 90% tax rate on the wealthiest individuals.
Which was less when
90%.
When Reagan came in and brought it down, the top 1% paid more. Can you believe that?
No.
Do you know that federal income tax? Wait. You know federal income tax? It was when it was established.
You're talking about the Laffer curve, and I'm telling you to go look at
here's my last claim. When federal income tax in 1913, when it was established, was only targeted at the people making 100,000 and over. Now we don't even know, most people don't even know that. It's just a base tax. Why? Because the projections that they had of taxing the rich didn't work out like they thought. Because it doesn't work out. There's a ton of loopholes. The rich are smart. Like, the rich people are smart.
He's just Sam's going to say get rid of
Our top
loopholes.
marginal rate still produced an effective tax rate that is double what it is today. 50% effective tax rate.
Does not create more wealth.
Yes.
More taxes
well,
do not
I don't know what you mean by wealth. I mean,
wealth is very simple. It's production of goods and services. That's what wealth is. That's what creates wealth.
Yeah, but what do you produce goods and services for? This is why the demand and the supply side are both important. Sam just is stronger. When you redistribute wealth to like when you give money to poor people, they spend it on consumption. Consumption is important because it drives an economy, right? Why do you think like consumer confidence is such an important metric for the economy? How much money people are willing to spend is important. Investment in businesses like capital is also important because you want people to be able to borrow money to open businesses. Wealthy people are really good at providing capital. Poor people are really good, or working class people, or whatever, are really good at providing consumption. If you feel like your consumption versus your capital allocation is out of whack, or for a variety of moral reasons, like you don't want people to be homeless or starving it down the streets, then you change your distribution a little bit more. Taking money from wealthy people to some extent and then giving it to poor people can increase your economy. It increases the total amount of wealth by literally giving poor people more opportunity to buy things because the consumption there is good for your economy. It depends on, like, there's a balance here to all these things. It's not like you're destroying wealth by taxing wealthy people. Like, investing money in the stock market is not the only way that you can contribute to an economy, you know? And super wealthy people just aren't going to be buying a fuck ton of shit for proportionally based on their income.
I mean,
wealth is very simple. It's production of goods and services. That's what wealth is. That's what
yeah, but consumptions you have to consume to produce as well. Nobody's going to produce stuff that nobody's consuming, right?
Taxes.
Money. People think money is
more
wealth.
Taxes
money buys wealth.
Creates less wealth inequality, and then you have wealth that is shared by more people rather than being in the hands of a plutocracy or a plutonomy. And then you get stuff like an oligarchy.
We've seen what happens when you punish your top producers over and over again. They leave. They stop producing. The government,
capital flight's a myth.
No, it isn't. You cripple the economy. Guess what happens next?
Wait. When did this happen in the country? When we had a 90% tax rate? It happens in every socialist country.
Hold on. Capital flight is absolutely not a myth. But the idea that the United States, I think, has ever enacted a policy that's been brutal enough to cause capital flight, that is a myth. I don't think that capital flight in any real sense has ever happened in the United States. Capital flight can happen if you get crazy with your policies. Capital flight meaning investors or people with money realize, like, wait, this economy is fucked. We're going to get super fucked. We need to get the fuck out. And I think that there have been forms of capital flight in countries before, but in the United States, I don't believe this has happened yet.
This is the socialist playbook. They're like, they come in and they're like, guys.
This is not a socialist country, and I'm not calling for socialism to have a higher tax rate.
It is more socialist than ever before.
No,
we have more social welfare spending.
No.
GDP, I'll say it again, 38% of government spending, of GDP is government spending. We have more social welfare programs. And look at what happens. But how come we have all these programs and the black community is still living in poverty?
What programs are you talking about that are geared towards the black community? We during in 2021.
What do you mean, what programs?
We expended. Hold on. In 2021.
What do you mean? What program?
Hold on.
How much money is enough? When is it enough? You have the richest country in the world.
We offered $300.
The way you guys think is just insane to me. Like,
guys,
let me just finish this.
All right, go ahead.
In 2021, we extended the child tax credit, which is basically a payment, $300 per social welfare.
Yes.
We cut child poverty in 1 year
by
45%. by 45%, but because no Republican would join the Democrats, and Kristen Sinema and Joe Manchin voted against this provision in Build Back. I'm talking 2021. From 2021 to 2022, we cut child poverty in this country by 45%. Look it up.
I feel like when I look at it,
I guarantee
How have you guys never heard this before? That's so sad.
You call me, and if I was wrong.
All right, we'll call.
I'll do it off camera. And you will see that we cut child poverty in a year by 45%.
I'll look into your claim.
All right, guys.
All right. We'll talk after.
My next claim is Trump's policies make the rich richer and the working class poorer.
Oh, these are all Marxist. Not really. They're not Marxist. They're not Marxist. That's not true. I shouldn't say that. But these are all like based on like this lefty like class corporation, billionaire bad, rich people bad. There are so many more factual, solid ground claims that we could make. Like, why not talk about like corruption? And you could even hit your billionaire talking about here. Talk about like the corruption that Donald Trump has made like available for accessing the United States government, right? The Trump's crypto schemes where anybody could make a payment to his administration from around the world and it's untraceable, and we have no idea if he's like currying favor with people like that, or people are currying favor with him. Or I feel like the criminal justice stuff is important, all that. Maybe he doesn't care about that, but the overall contraction of the economy due to his tariffs. Why not like Donald? How about this claim? Donald Trump's tariffs hurt the working class. Why not something like that? Oh, no, wait. Well, I was going to say the tariffs haven't happened yet, but Donald Trump has promised tariffs, so he could still argue it from the past, and it'd be really funny they'd actually occurred by now. Like, I don't know if the crypto Ponzi bullshit has happened in January yet, though. I think he'd already started the crypto scheme, no? Donald Trump launch crypto scheme. When did that happen? $ Trump coin. It launched on January 17th. I don't know when in January this was recorded, so.
Hello, sir.
Hey,
Hunter Howell. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, so do you mind if I ask what policies in specific are you referencing to?
Tax cuts for the rich. I think his idea of tariffs on countries in the way that he's talking about will make people poorer. I think all the work that they're doing in terms of attacking the government agencies will make people poorer because, you know, when you get agencies that are supposed to protect us from corporate interests, they will externalize their costs, those corporations, instead of actually assuming themselves. So their profits are made on the backs of all of us, whether it's our health, our protection from consumer rights, worker rights. His anti-union policies will make us poorer.
So real quick, I'm going to touch on one of the things that you said. Now, there was a lot to unpack there, but
there's a lot of policies.
We'll start at the very beginning. You talked about taxes. Let's talk about, in his first term, the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017. There are a couple things in that specific policy that actually do benefit the middle class and the lower class more than the top 1%. So you mentioned taxes, right? But in that, from the IRS data that came out, the middle class and lower class got affected.
The doubling of the standard deduction probably benefited poorer people more because they don't itemize their taxes, and that probably just helped a whole bunch of them save money on their taxes. That the doubling of that standard deduction, I think, was a really big deal for a lot of people, which is why a lot of poor people liked those tax cuts because they saw money back as well, I believe.
I think they ended up saving like 3 to 4% on their taxes, on their tax cuts, whereas the billionaires only saved 2%. So if we're talking an actual dollar amount, sure, the billionaires saved more, but they also make a lot more, right? Also, the billionaires don't really care about an extra grand or two. In that specific policy, the child tax credit doubled from $1,000 per household to $2,000. No billionaire cares about an extra grand in their pocket, but I can guarantee you the working class does. So how would you
Well, if you're going to go by child tax credit, the Democrats were offering way more there than Trump did, but
rebuttal that?
I would say in terms of the taxes themselves, well, the policies that Trump wants to pursue this time are to expand those taxes for wealthy folks. And over time, what starts to happen is you have this wealth disparity, and as the wealth disparity increases, it becomes harder for working people essentially to keep up. Things become more expensive. You get inflationary pressures when you have people with more money. We have more and more billionaires than we did 4 years ago. And a large part of that was obviously COVID, but a large part of it is also money starts to accelerate. Once you, like you say, when a millionaire gets a tax cut for a couple of grand or 60 grand or $500,000 at the end of the day, they end up investing that and ends up growing because they're not out there working for their money. Their money is just is doing all the work.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I think we can agree with you on that when it comes to, you know, billionaires and millionaires and there being a wealth gap in our country, right? I don't think Republicans or liberals would disagree on that, but I think where we will fundamentally disagree is under Trump, right, the stats show that take-home pay was higher for the middle class and the lower class. Inflation was down. They weren't paying as much on taxes.
Inflation was down, but wage growth was actually greater during the Biden administration.
Well, that's because due to COVID, when a lot of people lost jobs.
No. I mean, I'm talking in percentage comparison between those 4 years and these past 4 years. Wage growth grew not from as a baseline on 2020, but I'm talking as a baseline from 2016.
Interesting. Okay, well then another point that I want to talk on with you real quick is you talked about slashing government agencies, for instance, the Department of Government Efficiency. I'm sure you've heard about that a lot in the news.
That's not a government agency. That's just some committee.
It actually an executive order was signed to make DOGE an official government agency as of less than a week ago. So yeah,
Okay.
It is an official government agency.
Kind of, but not really. It's just an office in the executive. Donald Trump could create any one of these things. It's not like they're granted with any more power than what the executive is already granted with. But, I mean, I guess we'll let that one slide. Although we really shouldn't. We should fight on that, but...
So obviously we're talking about money. We want people to be able to afford a house. We want them to be able to afford to raise a family, right? As a young man myself, I want to be able to grow up in America and be able to afford food one day, right? I mean, I can now, but continue that. And at the way things are going, it's unsustainable for people on the left, people on the right, people in the middle. So we have to come to a common ground on how to fix that. What's unsustainable? The fact that cost of living is increasing year after year.
What does DOGE do to inhibit cost of living?
Yeah, absolutely. So what DOGE is going to do, the Department of Government Efficiency, is slash a lot of the federal spending, right? So what happens when the feds...
What spending is going to get cut?
So I'm getting there. 1 second, sir. So what's going to happen is the Department of Government Efficiency is going to slash a lot of federal spending. What happens is the government, Republicans, Democrats alike, spend a bunch of money that, excuse my language, but it's nonsense, right? They spend it out here, they spend it out there.
Be more specific. Here or there. Are you talking about cutting defense? Because they're not going to cut defense.
Well, for example,
wait a second.
Well, no. Let me finish. Okay. $175 billion to Ukraine, first and foremost.
That's one expenditure over 3 years, and I don't think we've even truly spent that much yet, and a lot of it is, obviously, it's not cash. It's going into U.S. production of weapons and everything else, but okay, that's a horrible example, but whatever.
It's a bunch of nonsense. So we're going to talk about that, but we also have a bunch of other things in the Defense Department.
Also, how are you going to cut that? That was already spent. That's not even an answer.
As well as a bunch of DEI departments.
Well, they're not touching, first of all, there are no...
We have DEI departments? Oh, God, not the Department of DEI.
DEI departments.
That's completely false.
Listen. Defense spending is not going to be touched by DOGE. And when you talk about the government, what's the biggest expenditure government has?
Defense.
Our military and Social Security are our top two.
And Medicare and Medicaid, right? Now, they're not going to touch the military. Are they going to cut Social Security? Do you think that's going to...
You're asking me like I'm part of DOGE.
No. Well, you're telling me that DOGE is going to help everybody here. And I'm telling you, if they cut Social Security, everybody in here is going to get hit. Because these folks are going to have to pay for their parents because Social Security keeps 2/3 of our elderly out of poverty. So tell me what they're going to cut that's going to make it easier for Americans.
I already did.
What?
I told you the $175 billion that we've sent to Ukraine. We're no longer going to
So he's going to...
Yes, so Donald Trump has signed an executive order.
No.
You've been voted out by the majority.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, let me get a drink. Hold on. Give me a minute.
Okay, so why did we see a higher increase in the top 1% paying as part of federal income revenue under TCJA?
Why did we see a higher increase in the...
So under TCJA, it was passed 2017, It was effective 2018. 2018 and onward, we actually saw the top 1% pay more. They had more of the federal income tax burden. They paid 45% as opposed to Obama. During Obama's tax plan, they only paid about 40 to 42% of the federal income tax.
Because they got more money.
Right, okay, so they got more money.
They got richer.
But why are they paying? So And why did they get richer?
Okay.
So this goes on inflation.
I want to hear, can you talk me through how does like a higher, I would just like to hear somebody talk through. I would like to hear one of these, okay, let's say the tax rates go up. So how are richer people paying less in tax? Like, are they going to earn less money? Do they just not work for as much money or not? What is the, I just want to hear the process through that, I guess. I don't know. There are answers that you could give, but it'd be interesting to hear how the conversation goes from there.
And that,
I mean, that's my point, is the rich are getting richer.
right, but why would you say that they're getting richer? But you mentioned inflation?
No, they're not. Well, I mean, I think that inflation, to the extent that there was money that wasn't a function of like logistics and other problems that we had during COVID, yeah, the rich got richer. Not all inflation is a function of monetary inflation.
That's true, but when we look at COVID and we can see that they increased the money supply by 40%, they added $6 trillion, and you have a Federal Reserve System that's doing quantitative easing and pumping stimulus into the economy, you can attribute that to left-wing.
Wait, one more time. Did we do QE over COVID? I thought QE was just over the 2007, 2008 thing. I don't remember if we did QE on COVID or not.
Policy,
We did? Okay.
entire Federal Reserve System is Keynesian economics. Those are very left-wing.
Well, I can tell you this: inflation went up in Western European countries the same rates
that had
it did.
Stimulus. That had stimulus.
No. They didn't have the same level of stimulus that we did. No, they did.
They absolutely did.
They did.
You can look at Japan. Yeah, I hear this topic all the time from the Democrats. They say, "Oh, inflation."
I'm pretty sure the United States gave more stimulus than almost every other country in the world. I think Japan was the one that gave more than us, that did more stimulus than the U.S. did.
Inflation was global. Not true. China never went above 3% inflation during all of COVID, and they were actually they were under deflationary pressures. Japan.
My guess is going to be as an exporter nation, I guess that could be true, right? But the deflation was probably really rough for them because they weren't able to sell as much. No, it's a different type of economy. They make it like it's a different style of economy. I don't know. Is he saying a deflationary economy would be good or?
Japan, which is part of the G7, was also never had deflationary pressures. They never had inflation increase. The only countries that had inflation increase. I'm talking
in Western Europe. You could see inflation. Well, you could England, Germany, Italy, France. They didn't stimulate as much as we did. It wasn't monetary inflation. If you look at the cost of goods and logistics got screwed up because of COVID.
So let's look at the reason. All international trade, because we're the world reserve currency, is done in U.S. dollars. Because we experience it, domestic inflation was high.
So you're saying our inflation caused higher inflation in Europe?
I don't know if all world trade is done in denominated USD. I know for petroleum it is. I don't know if all I don't know if all global trade is, but.
Absolutely, because
that's
trade,
not what economists say.
Well, you can look at the facts. International trade is we have.
But also, I don't know how U.S. inflating or deflating would matter either. I'm pretty sure people just do U.S. denominated trade, USD denominated trade, because it's a stable currency to trade through. But I'm not sure if the U.S. is inflating or deflating for our currency. I don't know if that would impact USD denominated trade, because it's just used as the currency of exchange there, not necessarily for. It's not like they don't have to like hold it or anything like that.
Dollar-denominated international trade.
100%
all international trade is that's why we're the world reserve currency. You guys claim that the U.S. recovered faster than anybody else. It's like, well,
it did.
It's because we have a privilege of being the world reserve currency, and we export our inflation. Like the strength.
We export our inflation.
Yeah, and let me explain that.